These are all the ingredients you're going to need: soy sauce, hoisin sauce, rice vinegar, mirin, brown sugar, chili garlic sauce, ginger, garlic, and chicken stock. This sauce comes from the YouTube channel Rainbow Plant Life, and I tried it and I just totally loved it. So that's what I tend to use when I make stir fries. I can link below. We're going to need 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. I can link below, I can't remember what channel it's on, but Chef Jet also shows how to make a bunch of traditional Asian dishes, and he lists all the sauces that go with them. Rice vinegar also uses 1.5 tablespoons. So this is a 1/2 tablespoon 3 times. And when I make stir fry for a soft food diet, since this is my easy dinner, normally I would just be chopping up all the vegetables. And I still do the same thing, I just use the food processor to chop up all the vegetables. So instead of, like sometimes when people talk about tasting recipes, they're like, well, this bite had a carrot in it and it had the sweetness of the carrot, and the next bite had the sulfur taste of an onion, and they describe things individually. We're going to need 2 tablespoons of mirin. You can also use white wine if you don't have mirin. But when they describe recipes like that, it's because the pieces are big enough that each bite is going to have different things in it. And it's 2 tablespoons of mirin. When you do it for a soft food diet, all of your pieces get mixed together. So every bite's going to have a little bit of everything, and they're really, unless you cook them all separately and then kind of put them on your plate separately, that's just a consequence of eating food that comes out of the food processor pre-blenderized. We're going to need 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, please let me know and maybe give me a hint as to the pronunciation. You never worry about how to say something until you have to say it in front of somebody else. And then you're like, oh wait, maybe I don't know how to say that. Two tablespoons of this. And this sauce is really sweet. It's made from fermented beans, fermented soybean paste. But I like the sweetness of this. I add it into other stuff like meatloaf. It doesn't have a flavor that I would consider typical of Chinese food, or like an Asian stir fry. Trying to get as much off the spoon as possible. That's another reason why I put the other things in the spoon first, because if the spoon is coated with the vinegar or the white wine, then this will slide off of it more easily. If you do this first, then everything can get stuck to the sides. We're also going to need to chop up some garlic. Each jar is going to get 4 cloves of garlic, and she likes her recipe spicy. I cannot handle spicy food at all. Sometimes I think pepper is spicy. So I don't use as much ginger as she recommends. She recommends taking a knob of ginger, a piece like this, and using 2 inches of it, which is a lot. I can use maybe ½ an inch before the bite from the ginger gets to be too much for me. This also uses chili garlic sauce, which is another thing that is really spicy. And I can put like a pinch of it in because it is going to get drowned out by some other flavors. I usually make this with udon noodles and the vegetables. Okay, make sure each jar is filled to the same level. I need a tablespoon of brown sugar. I also have used date sugar. I don't think it matters the type of sugar that you put in. And that is something for sauces that taste like takeout sauces. They all usually have a decent amount of sugar in them. For the garlic and the ginger, okay, first let's do chicken stock, chicken broth, or water if you don't have any chicken broth. We're gonna need 3 tablespoons of chicken broth, and I looked at the measurement level of each jar just to make sure that while I was talking I didn't skip a jar or forget a bunch of ingredients. To freeze this, I normally put it in, if you've seen the super cubes that people have where you can get it's like a giant ice cube tray that's made out of silicone, and I usually put it in one of those and let it freeze as well as it's going to, and then I put them in a bag separated by pieces of wax paper. Okay, chili garlic sauce. She recommends ½ to 1 teaspoon. I recommend like 1/8 of a teaspoon, like a pinch worth of chili garlic sauce, because it is really spicy, and if you can't handle spice, it might make the whole dish inedible for you. At least it does for me. Normally, if there's super spicy stuff in a dish, like Mexican or Indian, I can put sour cream on top and use that to kind of soothe the heat and the flavors. But that doesn't really work with a stir fry. At least I've never eaten it that way. And also, you can skip the spice if you want. It just adds heat to the dish. Alright, now for the magic of the ginger and garlic. I saw this online and I thought it was like the best idea that I'd ever heard of. I went out and I got a big container of ginger that had a whole bunch of knobs of ginger in it. I don't know if it's actually called a knob of ginger. I've heard it that way, but there has to be a different unit of measurement. But anyway, you put everything in the food processor and blitz it till it's all ground up, and then you lay it flat in a Ziploc bag and use like a butter knife or chopsticks or scissors, anything long and flat, to mark off how big you want each portion to be. And then whenever you need a portion of ginger or garlic, you can just pull it out of the freezer and it saves you a ton of time prepping, which is why it's magic. So I'm gonna put 1 of my pieces of ginger in each recipe, or you can use a microplane and grate anywhere up to 2 inches of ginger. The garlic, I need 4 cloves of garlic in each one. The garlic I didn't do as good of a job measuring. I was like, each square is going to equal 1 clove of garlic. And it could just be that the cloves of garlic I got were huge. I got a bag of garlic from Costco, and I just spent like an hour going through and tearing off the paper. Putting it in the food processor and blending it up. But this, prep-wise, this makes it so much easier when you have to come home and make dinner. It just feels like, it just makes me feel a lot of relief, because the part of the recipe that normally would take the longest, which is chopping the garlic and ginger, now takes the least amount of time. These are Super cubes, and it's SOUPER cubes. This is a 1 cup measurement. They're a 1 cup measurement. I've used these before to make freezer meals. Side dishes. Everything comes out in a square. This is a rectangle. Everything comes out in a rectangle, and before my surgery, I've used it and made, this is a mixture of sweet potato and lentils. And then with each portion in the tray, I would add different spices. So in one, I would add Mexican spices. The next, I would add Indian spices. The next, Cajun spices. And that way, every night of the week, I have a different flavored meal with the same base ingredients. The only problem I have with it is the rectangle size. If you put these same ingredients in a Ziploc bag and flatten it, it would take up so much less space in the freezer than if you use the super cubes. A lot of people will put them in a super cube mold and then put them in the freezer. It comes with a lid, and just put them in the freezer like that. And to me, this takes up a ton of space. It is silicone, so it works great for marinades because they come out of it really easily. Today I'm pretty low on vegetables, so I'm going to just use what I have. I'm going to get edamame, 2/3 of a cup of edamame is 10 grams of protein. But since these were frozen, I need to start soaking them in boiling water so they're easier to blitz. Have peppers, carrots, a green bean, which is suspicious all on its own, celery, and an onion. A sweet potato I'll cook separately, then chop it up into tiny squares and add it at the end. Everything else I'm going to wash and prep and then blitz in the food processor till the pieces are small enough that I would feel comfortable swallowing them whole without chewing. This recipe is a great recipe for garden season. In the summertime, I can come in and put whatever I recently picked in here and get all the colors of the rainbow and a bunch of different variety, and it's one of my favorite things. I always include celery because it's another vegetable, and when I had to go on a soft food diet, it felt like it was going to be impossible to get a ton of vegetables like I would normally eat. So I put celery in with just about everything. Not just about everything, but I do add it to a lot of stuff just because it's a vegetable and I miss them. Once I have everything chopped up, I'm going to put it in the food processor. I use 1.5 to 2 ounces of udon noodles that I've broken half. I have all my vegetables and a sweet potato, as well as some rice that I cooked the previous day. To try and make this a one-pot meal, I start by cooking the noodles in the pan. I put the noodles in, pour boiling water over them, and let them cook for about 10 minutes until they're soft, and then I set them to the side. I'm going to take the pan and pour in about 2 teaspoons worth of oil, because there's a lot of vegetables, and then start cooking with the onions. Once the onions have cooked for a few minutes, I'm going to add in the rest of the vegetables, except the sweet potato. That I'm going to add in at the very end. I'm going to add some salt to help draw the water out of the vegetables and help them cook. Once the vegetables are cooked, I'm going to add in the sauce, the cooked grains, and the noodles. I'm also going to add in the sweet potatoes and mix everything together until the sauce is warm and everything's blended.